Well, hello and welcome in. This is the Axio Wealth Management YouTube channel. We're talking with Rob Shelton. This is a four-part series we're doing with Rob to kind of learn more about him, the business, the planning process at Axio, and the typical person that will get the most out of what they do every single day. This is our second installment, Rob. We're getting the personal side of stuff. So we're going to put all the financial planning stuff aside and talk about you today. You ready for that?
Yes, let's open it up.
I got a few questions, nothing crazy, so kind of bear with me. But hopefully, today the goal is to kind of get to see a little bit more about who you are, kind of what makes you tick a little bit, and what you like to do away from the financial planning side of the business every single day. So I know you're there in Utah, so we'll probably have a little bit of tie into that as well. But I know we got into this on our first part, which I highly recommend you check out to kind of learn more about the business itself and what drove Rob into getting into Axio, beginning Axio and getting into financial planning. But how is your past experiences and maybe your upbringing? And you don't have to really tell the complete story you told last time. I encourage everyone to check that out. But how does that your upbringing kind of change your perspective and kind of shape who you are in your career?
Uh, yeah. I am so grateful for my parents. They're amazing. My mom has been an educator for many, many years. And my dad worked in the same building for 40 years and before he retired. And so growing up in the 80s where you had hyperinflation that had taken place, we got to grow up and learn what it meant to be frugal. And we definitely grew up very middle class. Learned what casseroles were good and which ones we didn't like, and all those different things. And I can't think now that I'm a parent myself of the sacrifices. I mean, there were so many that my mom and dad put in to helping us as a family be able to succeed. I've got five siblings, so six kids altogether. Was quite awesome to look back on, and so looking at that upbringing and the different challenges that came through those different sacrifices and seeing my parents sometimes go without to provide for their kids really helped shape a lot of my personality and mannerisms.
It's interesting because, we're seeing, I think, if you pay attention to the news at all, I think you're seeing, how families are starting to shrink more and more. So it's interesting still seeing and talking to someone that comes from a family with five siblings, because I think it's pretty rare nowadays, but it does build you a lot and shape your life quite a bit.
It does. And I'm so grateful for every one of my siblings, love them tremendously. We're still very close and do a lot of family functions together. I myself, have three children. And so I try to sometimes visualize the times two effect that my parents had. How did that work? Because I sometimes feel like I can only barely manage with just three.
Yeah, you don't truly appreciate your parents until you become one, right? And see all the struggle and the sacrifice and just the day to day that it takes to raise a family. But I love hearing about yours, and I'm sure we'll talk more about them, and they'll probably be tied into a lot of what we talk about here on the channel. But let's talk about what you do away from work, because I know this is obviously a huge passion and a big part of what you do and what drives you every single day at Axio. But away from work, I know there's a lot to do in Utah, so I'm curious kind of what your hobbies are once you're not in the office.
Yeah, I have maybe some very unique hobbies. One
Okay.
thing that growing up that was instilled in me pretty big is community service. And so, since I was 21, I've served on various nonprofit boards or committees. Just wrapped up serving 12 years on the American Fork City Council. Currently serving as a chairman of the board for Make-A-Wish Utah, and just love giving back and being able to help make a difference in someone's life. And so that's really what I enjoy doing, probably both inside work and outside work. It's an addictive habit, is that level of service that I have. And so when we're not helping successful families reach what's most important to them in work, outside of work, we're looking at ways that we can kind of give back within the community. And then outside of that, honestly, it's just spending any time with my family that I can, whether that's coaching sporting events or cheering from the stands as a spectator in my kids' sports, to family vacations and things of that nature.
As a parent of two young kids, I've kind of quickly seen how fast like interest can change. So I'm kind of curious, what is that thing that your kids are doing right now that kind of eats up a lot of the time?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, my son loves playing baseball. And so I enjoy coaching every spring his rec league in baseball, and it's a lot of fun. Get to meet a lot of different young men, and you see different household makeups. And again, I think part of what is awesome there is not just spending time with my son, but seeing how, being involved in a sport, like in a mentorship role like a coach, you can really have an impact on someone that maybe comes from a family formation that isn't quite ideal or typical, and to see how these young men can struggle and how you can be able to help them. Basketball, flag football, soccer. My daughter's a big avid soccer player. I played a lot of soccer growing up, and so we try to bond a little bit around that.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you what sport did you influence him on, but it sounds like soccer was that one. If anybody listened to the first episode talking about the business, they probably can guess the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyway for this one because maybe the answer is different. But if you weren't doing what you do now as the founder of Axio Wealth Management, what do you think you'd be doing?
That's a great question, and I love the journey and being able to find yourself. It's interesting. You turn 18, you graduate from high school, and all of a sudden you're on your way, right? And you
Yeah.
kind of have all these different paths to take, and you think you know yourself, and I don't know if you really uncover yourself till your 30s and who you are and what really drives you. But for me, it is that service component. And so one of the things that I wanted to go into was law. And the reason for that is being able to help people and to serve them through understanding the law and how it would apply to them. And so that was one of the professions I was seeking out.
All right. One thing that might surprise people if they learned about you can be anything.
Oh goodness, that's a great question. Um, I think um, if anything, it's probably that my downtime is I enjoy playing Battlefront with my wife on the Xbox. And
Okay,
so
yeah.
that's kind of our time sometimes to connect. That might seem a little bit weird. We do our morning walks for like 20 minutes to 30 minutes to be able to connect there. And then at the end of the day to unwind, it's nice to grab a controller with her and we set different goals and what we're trying to accomplish and work towards them. And so it's something that we enjoy doing.
That's pretty cool. That again, that surprised me. That's a great answer. All right, going to play a little rapid fire with you here to close out this conversation. I've got just some random questions to throw your way. You don't have to get into a big answer, but just kind of curious. Help us learn a little bit more. All right, if you could have dinner with one historical figure, who would it be?
Good question. I would probably say George Washington, huge history buff, really love the American history and the American Revolution. And boy, I'd love to get to know him better and have some questions for him.
Yeah, that's a good one. If what was the best vacation you've been on?
Oh, there's been so many great ones. If I give you two, if that's okay.
Yeah,
One was Hawaii. Obviously, that was great with the family and taking the kids over there and creating some great memories. And then the other one was just Arches National Park here local. I really love that we just kind of disconnected and just spent time together doing hikes and enjoying it. And I would say both of those are really special to me. Very big cost difference between the two. But it was great to be able to see that we didn't have to travel to some exotic place to be able to create some great lasting memories. And Arches was a beautiful place to be able to do that at.
awesome. Good recommendations. What's a book, a podcast, a movie, just some sort of, I guess, media that you've maybe consumed recently that you would recommend to someone?
Yeah, history that doesn't suck.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that.
I love that podcast. Greg's a dear friend of mine, and he has a great way of telling a story. I always love to learn about history and think and put myself in their shoes and try to think about what would I do in that situation and how would I handle that.
Well, you told me beforehand that you don't drink coffee, so I'm curious, what is a guilty pleasure that you have?
If it's a guilty pleasure, I would always say it's a steak and potatoes kind of a guy.
Yeah,
I'm not a big sugar guy, but my wife has instituted what they would call Swig Day. It's in Utah. They have this craze about sugary sodas, if you will. And so you take a soda and you add different flavored syrups and they mix it up and kind of like a mocktail, if you will. And so
yeah.
one thing is she'll get me a surprise every Thursday when she takes the kids. And I just enjoy getting a little bit of a surprise of whatever that would be. But it's always got to have a base of either a Mountain Dew or a Dr. Pepper. Those are my two go-tos.
I like those. I like those. All right, a couple more. As a financial person, I always get a kick out of this question because I'm curious kind of what your take on it would be. But if you won the lottery tomorrow, what would be one of the first things you did?
Boy, that's a great point. There's been so many charitable causes that we have loved to be involved in. One of the first things I do is set up a donor advised fund and put some of that money away and make sure that we have a way of giving back. Money as a way to be able to shape our behavior at times, and it can be positive or for the negative. And early on in my career, being involved in charities in the community and giving back has been a good way to keep me grounded. And I don't want to necessarily change for the worst. I want to change for the better. And so when that life changing event like winning the lottery would happen, that's something I want to make sure it would be a big priority for me.
All right, last thing. What's a motto or a quote, something that inspires you that you live by every day?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know if there's a necessarily a motto or a quote, but in my office, I have different pictures of different individuals that I feel like have made a tremendous impact in my life. And sometimes when I have a hard time or I struggle, I'll quickly glance at one of those pictures. And it's interesting how just their face from their mentorship and their impact they've had on me kind of talk me through or give me inspirational quotes at times to be able to help me get through over a tough time that I have.
I love that. All right, I'm not gonna put you on the spot anymore. We'll wrap it up on that note. But some very good insight and good to kind of know a little bit more about you, Rob, and kind of what drives you and what gets you excited every single day. I know beyond Axio Wealth Management, which you care a lot about. And if you do want to get in touch with Rob, want to learn more about the planning process, kind of how they help families live that successful life and really have a fulfilling life in retirement, you can always get in touch. Everything's down in the show description, but axiowm.com. That is the website, and the phone number 801-717-9237. All right, a couple more parts to come, so please subscribe. We hope you're enjoying this. Rob, thanks for being so interesting and compelling and being honest with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.